So, this will be the last video until I do my next video, and hopefully this one will calm me down. Now, if in case you guys are wondering why am I talking like this, it's due to one thing. I'm looking at a very obscure show that really stuck with me after I have to point out that this is one of my favorite reviewers who actually talked about this years ago. Now, in case you guys don't know me by now, I follow a user by the name of TheHeroOfTomorrow, and as he used to call himself the cartoon hero because he watches a lot of cartoons, anime, movies, and such. And as you can tell, he's what got me into doing these videos to begin with, though. I have to give him thanks for that, so I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check out his channel, because he actually has a lot more better videos than I have, and honestly he's pretty underrated, so giving him props for what we're looking at today is one that he looked at that feels let's go. Now, when it comes to having these here magical girl shows, I never once said I was gonna do obscure shows. Yeah, there's gonna be underrated shows and shows that I feel like need more attention, but when it comes to obscure shows, I wish to God I haven't seen this show. And trust me, I have my reasons for why that is. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, CosPrayers, and I don't blame you if you don't know this show because it's very forgettable, it's one of those shows that was animated by the studio by a nice name. They call themselves the Masters of Entertainment. And trust me when I say this, they don't deserve that title. And when I say that, I really meant that, especially because this is one of those shows. Like, if you thought High Guardian Spice is one of those shows that doesn't explain to you and stuff right off the bat, well, Cosplayers might as well be the one that came out beforehand, right in 2004. Now, 2004, I will say I don't have that much memories of it, considering I was way too young as it is to know what I'm watching and so forth, though, but it really goes without that literally and how to hear this flamingo gonna be bitching about how bad it really is. So I guess you could hear me bitch now, because otherwise I'm not gonna enjoy this episode. Strap yourselves in, folks, because we're going in for a long ride. God help me now. So right out of the gate, I'm gonna have to just say to my audience right here and now, this show does not explain anything. So I'm gonna try to explain what's going to happen in this year's show, because trust me, it doesn't give you much anyways, except, hey, we might as well say fuck you, you have to explain yourself. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just wait. The series itself focuses around our main protagonist, Kodo. Kodo is really trying to cosplay because she's getting changed in a bus. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure when you change in a bus, some people are gonna watch you, and I'm glad they don't watch her, not even the driver. And as you can tell from there, though, it gets weird, like, in a bad way pretty fast, because get this, the air forces begin to drop and start to dropping vehicles, bombs and people all at the same time. Anyone with brain cells could tell you this is incredibly a stupid idea. I mean, if you really think that airdropping vehicles and people and bombs and stuff like that are really worth dropping all at the same time, well, you're practically gonna get somebody killed, or at the very least you don't seem to give two shits or more, because all I can say is that this is incredibly stupid. Literally the only reason I can comprehend and though that they come up with this stupid idea is because they thought, hey, why the hell not? And yeah, Kodo puts on a watch, but she calls it a bracelet. Yeah, same difference, just go with it. And as you can tell, Kodo has no idea what's going to happen, though, because get this, after she does a pose, yeah, she does a pose, like a henshin pose, we get transported to another world with the guy named Cruz, who I suppose is the driver. I don't really know because they don't tell us who the driver is, so your guess is as good as mine. And from there, she goes into a portal where she meets a few other girls, and they do everything they can to fight monsters and stuff. Now, I will say right off the bat, there are a few problems with this premise as much as it is. First, this series doesn't give you anything to work with except fuck you, you have to work with whatever you can though. And to get matters worse, this series doesn't explain anything, literally anything, to this here audience about what we're going into. I'm beginning to suspect there's probably a reason why nobody wants to watch this show anymore if you don't do anything like that. Look, at least with the previous show I talked about, Magical Girl Ore, while it was weird in a way that you can at least say they don't explain too much at once, at least you can follow where they're going and at least go run with it as much as it is. What's with this show? Why aren't they explaining anything to us? What's this dimension? Actually, can we even call it a dimension? I'm only saying this because guess what? This dimension doesn't tell you anything about what we're going into, and thus, believe it or not, they don't even give you any sort of way to go into the series itself. Now let's get this out of the way. What happens when you watch a first episode? It's usually a first impression, right? To get to know the characters, to get to know what their motivations are and such, if there's any, not just a Magical Girl show, but any show out there, and you think that they would explain to you things right away, right? Well, with this show, you can just say they pulled out not just one, but a bunch of middle fingers up there because they're saying, fuck you, you still have to explain yourself what's going to happen, though. You know, when there's a first episode, you're going to hear me say key writing points, so take whatever kind of drink you're going to get your lips on. So, there you have it. Okay, writing tip number 1. If you're going to have a first episode, establish what the plot says. Seriously, can I just call it premise? Saying plot makes me cringe now. Thank you. Anyways, the premise itself doesn't tell you anything except what the hell we're getting into, though. And yeah, basically what you're getting into, they don't explain anything to us, though. This is basic writing tip screenwriting since the beginning of time. If you're not going to explain anything about these characters, then why the hell should we even get cared for? So anyway, I'm beginning to understand that this is what happens when you don't do much anyways. So let's go over the characters. What? Oh, you don't really give them their names? What? Are you shitting me? You mean to tell me they don't give us the characters' names? Well, okay, they give us Cruz. We'll skip him, though, because he's nothing more than who you think he is. But let's go over these two girls, Kodo and Scarlet. And before you say anything, I will get to the other girls. Just wait. Now, I will say, though, when it comes to having your own Magical Girl shows, though, what happens when you have a bunch of Magical Girls teaming up, though? They usually give them their names and personalities, right? If you think that way, you got a few of the rating tips there. If not, then you're not gonna get anywhere anyway because this show is so damn stupid. When I say that, I mean it really, though. Kodo, the one in the pink on the left, as you see the picture I'm showing you right now, it's basically, let's just say it this way. Kodo is not anything special. That's really the best way to describe it. Okay, I guess you could say she's the chosen one of this year's story because she's trying to figure out what to do with becoming a magical girl or a cosplaying or some shit like that. The series itself doesn't explain a damn thing, so your brain cells are just melting with mine at this point. And as to make matters worse, this girl is supposed to be our main heroine. Our main heroine, people, who doesn't know what to do except she wants to be a warrior or magical girl herself too anyways, and yet she doesn't have the guts to do it. Yeah, because when I'm a magical girl, I get scared right away. Okay, I will say one thing's for sure. Yes, I understand that when you're a magical girl, it's gonna be kind of difficult. Not just that, but also when it comes to being a superhero. But do you know what's the difference between those two and this year? They actually gave us motivation to understand where they're coming from, though. The motivation here doesn't ring a bell to the writers' heads. And writing tip number 2, if you don't give characters motivation about what they're fighting for, then chances are the audience is not gonna give two shits about these here characters. At least we have Scarlet, who I guess you could say she's Satsuki Hiroyuki from Kill la Kill, but Satsuki had a lot more charm to her character, and what's more, she actually did have reason to act so much of a leader as much as she is, in spite of all that though. But I'm gonna say this right here and now. This girl is basically Satsuki if Satsuki didn't have any of the charisma. And no joke, I guess you could say Scarlet's a little better than Kodo, but that's not exactly saying much. Especially for how she trains Kodo. Like, she tries to show her some tactics that are a bit harsh at times, though. She shows them to be a bit weird, to go ahead and run her over. Wait, what? Wait a minute, she tried to run Kodo over? As much as I don't like Kodo, I don't think running over is gonna do much justice anyway, so what the fuck is going on here, though? Are you saying to me that you really want us to go ahead and think that this is the best way to motivate your character's motivations? Are you serious? Like, are you freaking serious? Though, yeah, I'm not gonna get over this, am I? I almost got run over. Does that qualify me to become a magical girl? Is that what this trying to say to me? I'm not even close to being done with this episode yet, and I'm already losing my brain cells as much as it is. And the worst part is, this year's show has 8 episodes of 12-minute lengths. I guess you could count the specials too, because there are a few specials, but you can skip over those because honestly, you're not going to care much about this show anyway once it's already done. Yeah, when you have 8 episodes of a show, as much as some people could find that a short amount of time to understand where the characters are coming from, it's best if you just go ahead and just say, hey, let's do this without having any motivation. Writing tip number 3. Why become a writer if you're not gonna write this down, but you're gonna write it down anyway? So here's my tip for you. When you have these characters that have a motivation, it's best to at least try to elaborate. Now I know some people are gonna say the first episode doesn't have to explain everything, Flamingo. You don't have to do that though. And today I say, yeah, you don't have to explain everything about this here her first episode, because let's be honest, you don't have to elaborate everything. Usually the premise itself has to move right along and to at least understand what we're going to be in for. And honestly, I can understand that to a high degree. The difference is that when it comes to that, you usually still have to explain stuff to the audience about what their motivation is, what they're gonna do, and so much and so forth. I'd be hit or miss if I didn't mention this, but if you go so far as to not give the characters motivations, then we're not gonna care at the end of the day anyways. That's like saying if you have Spider-Man, you're just gonna say he's really just there to save the day and not have any motivation other than he's just using his powers and his web surfing or some shit like that because the plot said so. Why did I have to say the P word again? Oh, and by the way, you know how you're supposed to establish who the characters are, like say what their names are and stuff like that? Well, guess what? I guess we're taking more High Guardian Spice lessons when they tell us all the characters' names who are important to the story. I'm not kidding you. They don't really elaborate these other characters that Kodo is with until, get this, halfway through the episode. What the actual fuck? Okay, let's get this out of the way first. I know some people are gonna say you don't have to establish all these characters, what their names are, if they're really side characters. If they're side characters, I don't really care, because characters that are side characters don't really have to have their names introduced or anything. If they're side characters or minor characters or sometimes supporting characters, you can establish their names if you want to, but you don't have to do it all the time though, because the characters that are important to the story, it's best to say what their names are so we'll know who to address. But I'm being dead serious! These characters don't give any of these other characters names except Kodo and Scarlet, and guess what? Near half of the series, no joke, halfway through the series, only then do they give them their names. Yeah, basic screenwriting 101, people. Writing tip number 4. If you're gonna be establishing who these characters are, and if you don't really give us too much to go with though, then chances are we're not gonna do much anyways, except why the hell do we even bother with these characters if you're not gonna do much of them anyways? Seriously though, this is what I mean when I say this show is so forgettable, you might as well just say you don't have to watch it. And honest to God, I had to suffer watching this show all the way through when coming to watch this anyways. I nearly passed out. I nearly fell asleep. I thought I was drinking eggnog again. Did I mention I was drinking eggnog again when it comes right down to it though? I know I'm harping on this here show, but really that's the best way to describe this your show in a nutshell. This series is so bad that it can't elaborate what the characters' names are, what their motivations are, and so much and so forth that I'm surprised that anyone who ever did bother to watch this show, aside from me and The Hero of Tomorrow, really gave two shits anyways, if anything to judge by. Now granted, The Hero of Tomorrow did this because he actually did say that this series himself was basically on a so horrible it's in a Halloween category when he was doing that in 2011, even though I didn't know him until 2015 in summertime. But I want you all to know this for the record. When you realize that this show has so many problems as is, it's time it's a good idea. And besides all of that, let's go over some of the technical stuff before we get any further though. Let's talk about the animation. And honestly, simply put, it's pretty forgettable. I'm not shitting you when I say it's really not that iconic like say Sailor Moon or anything in the like though, but who knows, maybe they just didn't have enough budget. But speaking of the budget, I've watched this show and I felt kind of dirty watching this year's show because guess what? Whenever the characters do transform, you know how magical girl shows, they usually transform into the magical girls that they're supposed to turn into while still having their clean stuff right away and yet still run with it? This show does the opposite of that. No joke. Instead, though, they use their bathing suits. Yeah, they use their bathing suits in order to transform, and for some reason, I don't know why, but they have no problem with showing characters in the crotch? I shit you not. I need to bang on something, so give me a sec. What did I miss? Oh, I see. Now I really say, though, for a show like this, I think it's safe to say it's really gone to the point where they really just couldn't give less of a rat's ass or more if they had so already though. But bear in mind, this is writing tips 101 if you ever want to create a show for yourself though, or create any kind of story, whatever you want to create though. Yeah, I'm speaking out of Dark Flamingo's mind if it wasn't already obvious. And yeah, needless to say, I'm not surprised that this show is that forgettable when it comes right down to it though. So let's go over what else is so bad about this show before I lose all of my brain cells entirely, shall we? When it comes right down to it, this show does look like it has some bit of potential. Now, take that as nicely as you can, because that's not me being a nice person. And before you say anything, yes, having a redone series of the Magical Girl formula, as well as any existing since Sally the Witch. And let me tell you, Sally the Witch came out beforehand, and when a 1960s show can actually do much more than what this show can when it came out in 2004, you know they failed so miserably. And it's not just that though. This show seems like it could have had potential if it had better direction and stuff like that. Always have to sound like I was getting my eardrums bleed to every second she tries speaking or yelling or shouting or anything like that though. Seriously, I know the voice actress or seiyuu or whatever you want to call them, anyways, I don't really care. Whatever you call them, no. It seems like the director just loves to hear her scream so much that it must have busted the microphone after the show was over, because this voice direction is terrible. Every time the characters talk, it's like they have some emotion in their voices, and other times it sounds like they don't give two shits, and other times it's like the director just fell asleep and just let them talk whatever though. I'm beginning to wonder if they actually had better direction, if anything, to judge by. But knowing MOE for how forgettable that studio is, I think it's safe to say it would have had so much like this in the first place anyways. But despite the fact how much this show doesn't give two shits and only wants to focus on nonsense, I think we're better off for it though. And this is another egregious level that angers me more than you may think though. The constant thing about these here shows that think that the audience is smarter than they are should at least understand though. Look, I know that for shows and movies they can at least try to interpret what they can though. That's part of the reason why Magical Girl shows and other shows exist though, to understand these characters of what they're fighting for. That said, however, what really bothers me, and this really angers me that you may think though, is that they really don't seem to understand that no two shows are gonna have the same motivation or same formula all the time. Yeah, it can be recycled, like say a superhero show, or sometimes in the combination of that, but let's put it this way. What if we had all superhero shows do the same thing? Like say, they're only there to fight the bad guy and nothing else. You can still have them defeat the bad guy, like say Spider-Man just defeating the Green Goblin, or Venom, or Carnage, or Dr. Octopus, or whoever, or say Superman who fights off Dr. Lex Luthor or some shit like that. But I understand that's really what superheroes and Magical Girl shows do. They're there to fight the bad guys, but they can still have a little more motivation though, and show a little more solid in between them, just to show the difference between those though. Like, what's there for cosplayers? What's there that's not already there anyways? I guess you could say they wanted to do something new with it, which again, I have no problem with shows doing something different, something new, something to add to the table in order to cooperate with that. The difference with this is they don't seem to care, or at least they do care, they just think that the audience is smart enough to know, because as we all know, all of us are Einsteins. Our IQ is smarter than 200. Oh, what is this world coming to? I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it just doesn't seem to give two shits. They don't give the characters motivations, they don't give them their names. Every character's either a fucking moron to the point where you want to body slam yourself to the fucking wall. Seriously, I wish I could do that. And there's so much more that I could not stand when doing so. Many people will say that longer shows have their ways of doing things differently, but let this be a lesson to you all and say that it's best to actually understand what you're trying to do though. Whether it's a TV show, a movie, a story, or whatever media you're looking into, you need to understand what they are. And if they just do nothing but dawdle and not tell you anything, then that shows that they just don't care. And you know what? I care. I do care. I mean, I've seen plenty of media throughout my time. My Magical Girl podcast, as much as I've been and going through with it all the time though, even I'll admit, these here magical girl shows mean a lot to me. They help me cope. They help me find inspiration for some of my writings, if anything to judge by. But when it comes right down to it, this is definitely the case where I'm just gonna say I can see why nobody remembers cosplayers as much as they have though. Or in this case, it's just too messy to understand what's gonna happen though. While I admit this is nowhere near the worst thing I've covered so far, I mean, let's be honest, the animation is pretty boring, the characters are pretty forgettable, the premise itself is pretty much what you expect, especially one that's doing so. And I know some people are gonna say that it's really forgettable to the point where it can be predictable, but let me put it to you this way. Just because it's predictable, or sometimes like that, does not automatically mean it's going to turn out that way. I've been writing stories since childhood. I know for a fact that if anything, stories can be whatever you can at least show that. And when you get right down to it, that shows how much you should care though. Whether you're a writer like me, or an artist like some people I know, or some combination of whatever content creation or whatever we want to do so. And if you want to get your name out there, you need to show how much you care about your works. Because if you don't care about your works, then I hate to say it, what's the point of sticking around? And I don't like saying that, though, considering that I do care about what people put out there. I want them to understand that there's more to this than just what meets the eye. And honestly, cosplayers seem to have that kind of notion where I don't even know if it's anywhere just being incompetent, or they just never understood the concept of it. Maybe they did have something going with it, but they just never ran with it. And when you don't run with the ideas that you have, then I hate to be that guy, but it's best if you just don't do it whatsoever. Hell, I made these videos made from someone who wants to talk about not just magical girl shows, not just showing how much I love writing, but to show I do care about what I put out there. My mental health issues may not be all that healthy, but even I'll admit, I still do everything I can to cope and put the videos out there to give what I can though. And you know what? That's really something I can't express how much I love my content anyways. It does have its flaws. The audio was jacked up as shit last year, including the ones I did do before I got a new laptop, and I think the audio quality is a little better than it was before now. And believe it or not, that shows that I want to have improvement. And that's the key word here. Improvement. Not just in my not just in writings, not just in drawing, not just in say your content. I mean everything you do needs improvement. If not, then it's just gonna go back to square one. And you don't. And honestly, that's something I need everyone to understand. If you don't show improvement on your works, then chances are no one's gonna stick around now. Hell, I taking a look at my take on, looking back on them, I did somewhat want to go back to seeing how much they aged, and the only one I think that I got the most out of material with would have to be from Rebecca Starlight or Star Giant Productions. As much as I, along with my two friends who I talked to on my stream from last week on though, I have to say though, that's one person that you can tell she didn't want to do improvement or anything like that though. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that cosplayers proved to be almost like that. Not just by Rebecca, but by other people who don't want to improve though. And let me assure you, if you don't ever improve on your works, then you're not gonna care about it, it seems like. But not just you, but anyone else who doesn't seem to give you much hope though. You want to have your work inspire people, to show that they are remembered in the right ways. But if they're memorable in the wrong ways like this show, like CosPrayers, then yeah, this is definitely the case where it definitely didn't show much as it is though. And I know what some of you guys are thinking. It was 2004 and they had a lot to work with to go with the new set pieces of the magical girl genre. To that I say, that's no excuse. That's no way to judge it though. Yeah, I know some people are thinking I'm being a little too harping on this year's show and I was too angry for myself. but now you see why I don't like showing too much of my anger. I don't want to be the pre-Mr. Enter. I don't want to be Zay Magenta. I don't want to be hey, fucking Lily Orchard or Rebecca Starlight. I want to be me. I want to be my own identity. I want to show you guys how this flamingo enjoys writing, how much she finds it a passion, and how much she wants to show that there's more to writing than what meets the eye. And even if you aren't a writer like I am, you have to give some respect on what goes into a story. And believe it or not, that's why I went back to The Hero of Tomorrow when I started watching this show for myself and for how his perspective is. I mean, this show is bad, don't get me wrong. It's bad in a lot of ways that we can look at and say it's basically Hiker and Spice before Hiker and Spice became a thing. And to be honest, that's something we need to understand though. If you don't show much improvement on your works, regardless of what it is, then I don't think anyone would bother to stick around at this point. It's really one of the reasons why I didn't want to do my channel, why I want to prove to people that being a writer means a lot to me. Again, I started writing since childhood. I think we can all agree that when you're a child, of course your writing is not going to be as good as it is now, or some combination of that. Whether it's due to your writing, your drawings, or whatever you're good at, of course it needs improvement. Of course you need to check up on it. Of course there are going to be ways you have to understand that though. But if we look at it from this way, I think we can all agree on one thing though, that without improvement, we're not going to show how much we've grown over the time though. And this is a prime example of why I decided to watch this show. Yeah, my brain cells may have mushed into, say, lava at this point, like liquid lava, but honestly, that's why I always come back to some bad shows and bad media. And you know what? I can still see why that is though. It still is one of those shows you still have to say it's bad, but again, I wouldn't recommend watching this show unless you want to see how bad it really is. Well, don't say I didn't warn you. If anything to judge by though. Yeah, I'm gonna just say this right here and now. I think I'm done with this show entirely though. It's got all the things I already discussed that bears repeating, and I'm just really gonna say this right here and now. If you don't care what you're into though, then what's the point of doing it anyways though? You can still show how much you love doing what you do, but again, show the improvement. Don't tell us how you're gonna improve, just show it. And with that, I think I'm done until whenever I get my video done by Mother's Day. So until then, thank you all so much for watching. See you all then, and as always, stay flamingo-tastic. I'll see you all soon.